The morning sun filtered through the kitchen window as Kate finished preparing breakfast for her family. She had been married to William for 12 years, and their routine had become as predictable as the sunrise itself. William would wake up, check his phone, shower, eat breakfast, and head to his job at the marketing firm downtown. Kate would get their two children, Emma and Jake, ready for school before starting her own day working from home as a freelance graphic designer. But something felt different that Tuesday morning. William seemed more distracted than usual, constantly checking his phone and smiling at the screen in a way that made Kate's stomach flutter with unease. She had noticed this behavior for weeks now, but had pushed her concerns aside, telling herself she was being paranoid. "Honey, your coffee's getting cold," Kate said, placing the steaming mug next to William's plate of scrambled eggs and toast. William looked up from his phone with a startled expression, quickly turning the device face down on the table. "Sorry, just checking emails from work. You know how demanding the Johnson account has been lately." Kate nodded, though something in his tone didn't ring true. The Johnson account had been completed months ago. She sat down across from him, watching as he hurriedly finished his breakfast, his eyes occasionally drifting back to his phone. "Mom, where's my science project?" Emma called from upstairs, her voice filled with panic. "It's on the kitchen counter, sweetie," Kate replied, grateful for the distraction from the growing tension she felt. William stood up abruptly, grabbing his phone and briefcase. "I need to head out early today. There's a morning meeting I forgot about." He kissed Kate's forehead quickly, but she noticed he avoided making eye contact. This had become another pattern she'd observed. The quick, almost obligatory kisses, the avoiding of direct conversation, the constant excuses about work meetings and deadlines. After William left, and the children were off to school, Kate found herself alone with her thoughts and a gnawing feeling in her chest. She tried to focus on her current design project, a logo for a local bakery, but her mind kept wandering to William's strange behavior. The way he guarded his phone, the unexplained late nights at the office, the new cologne he'd started wearing. Kate had always prided herself on being a trusting wife. She believed in giving people the benefit of the doubt and had never been the type to snoop or interrogate. But as the weeks had passed, the signs had become harder to ignore. There were the mysterious phone calls that William would take in another room, speaking in hushed tones. There were the new clothes he'd bought without mentioning them to her. There was the way he seemed mentally absent even when he was physically present. By lunchtime, Kate couldn't concentrate on work anymore. She decided to surprise William by bringing him his favorite sandwich from the deli near his office. Maybe spending some time together would help ease her worries and remind her why she was being silly about her suspicions. The marketing firm where William worked was housed in a sleek glass building downtown. Kate had visited many times over the years, usually for office parties or to pick William up when his car was being serviced. She knew most of his colleagues and had always felt welcomed by them. As she walked through the lobby, carrying the bag with William's sandwich and a homemade cookie, Kate felt optimistic about the surprise. Maybe this was exactly what their relationship needed. More spontaneous gestures, more effort to connect during busy days. She took the elevator to the 8th floor and walked through the familiar hallways lined with modern art and motivational posters. William's office was at the end of the corridor, a corner space with windows overlooking the city that he'd earned after years of hard work and promotions. Kate approached his office and was about to knock when she heard voices coming from inside. William was talking to someone, but it wasn't the professional tone he usually used for business meetings. His voice was softer, more intimate, with a warmth that Kate hadn't heard directed at her in months. "I can't stop thinking about last night," William was saying. "The way you looked in that blue dress. God, Sarah, you're incredible." Kate's hand froze inches from the door. Sarah. She knew that name. Sarah Martinez was William's project manager, a vibrant woman in her early 30s with dark hair and a laugh that seemed to light up every room she entered. Kate had met her several times at company events and had always found her friendly and professional. "William, you know this is risky," came Sarah's voice through the door. "What if Kate finds out?" What if someone sees us together outside of work? Kate's heart began pounding so hard she was sure everyone in the building could hear it. She pressed herself against the wall next to the door, her legs feeling weak and unsteady. Kate doesn't suspect anything, William replied with a confidence that felt like a knife twisting in Kate's chest. She's so focused on her own work and the kids. Besides what we have, this connection, it's something I never expected to find. I feel the same way, Sarah responded. But I hate sneaking around. I hate lying to everyone, especially to Kate. She's always been so nice to me. I know. But we just need more time to figure this out. Maybe after the Henderson project is finished, we can think about what comes next. Kate felt the walls of the hallway spinning around her. The lunch bag slipped from her trembling hands, the contents scattering across the polished floor. The sound echoed through the quiet corridor, and the voices in William's office immediately stopped. For a moment, there was complete silence. Kate stood frozen, unsure whether to run, to burst through the door, or to simply disappear into the floor. Her mind raced with fragments of thoughts. 12 years of marriage, 2 beautiful children, the house they'd bought together, the dreams they'd shared, the life they'd built that was apparently crumbling while she remained obliviously focused on daily routines. The office door opened slowly, and William appeared, his face pale and his eyes wide with shock. Behind him, Kate could see Sarah standing near the window, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment and guilt. "Kate," William whispered, his voice barely audible. "What are you doing here?" Kate looked down at the scattered sandwich and broken cookie on the floor, then back up at her husband's face. For 12 years, she had memorized every expression he made, every tone of voice, every gesture. She knew when he was tired, when he was stressed, when he was happy, when he was lying. And right now, looking at his shocked and guilty expression, she knew that everything she had suspected and tried to dismiss was true. "I brought you lunch," she said quietly, her voice surprisingly steady despite the hurricane of emotions raging inside her. "I thought you might be hungry." The three of them stood there in the hallway, surrounded by the evidence of Kate's thoughtful gesture and the ruins of her marriage. Other office workers were beginning to notice the commotion, peeking out of their offices and whispering among themselves. William stepped forward, his hands reaching out toward Kate, but she instinctively stepped back. "Kate, let me explain. This isn't what it looks like." But Kate's mind was already replaying every conversation they'd had over the past few months, every excuse, every late night, every time he claimed to be working when he was apparently building a relationship with another woman. She thought about the times she defended him to her sister, who had occasionally made jokes about William working too much. She thought about the times she'd felt lonely and had blamed herself for being needy. "Actually, William," Kate said, her voice gaining strength, "this is exactly what it looks like." Sarah appeared in the doorway behind William, her professional demeanor completely shattered. "Kate, I'm so sorry. We never meant for this to happen. It developed over time, and we couldn't stop it." Kate looked at Sarah, this woman she had considered friendly, someone she had chatted with about weekend plans and shared recipes with at office parties. The betrayal felt doubled, not just from her husband, but from someone she had trusted and welcomed into their social circle. "How long?" Kate asked simply. William and Sarah exchanged glances, and Kate could see the silent communication between them that spoke of intimate knowledge and shared secrets. 3 months, William admitted quietly. 3 months. Kate calculated backward in her mind. 3 months ago was when William had started working late more frequently. 3 months ago was when he had suddenly become interested in going to the gym again. 3 months ago was when their conversations had started feeling forced and distant. "I need to go," Kate said, turning away from them both. "Kate, please, we need to talk about this," William called after her as she walked toward the elevator. But Kate kept walking, her legs moving on autopilot while her mind struggled to process what had just happened. She felt like she was watching someone else's life fall apart, like she was observing a movie rather than living her own reality. The elevator ride down to the lobby felt endless. Kate stared at her reflection in the polished metal doors, seeing a woman who looked exactly like her, but whose life had just changed completely in the span of 5 minutes. This morning, she had been a married woman with concerns about her husband's behavior. Now, she was a woman whose marriage was potentially over, whose trust had been shattered, whose future was suddenly uncertain. As she walked through the lobby and out into the bright afternoon sunlight, Kate felt a strange sense of clarity beginning to emerge from the shock. For weeks, she had been questioning her own instincts, wondering if she was being paranoid or oversensitive. Now she knew that her intuition had been correct all along. The signs had been there, clear as day, and she had chosen to ignore them because facing the truth had seemed too painful. But now the truth was unavoidable, and somehow that felt better than living with constant doubt and worry. The pain was sharp and immediate, but it was real in a way that the vague unease of the past months had not been. Kate got in her car and sat there for a long time, staring at the building where her husband worked, where he had been building a relationship with another woman while she focused on keeping their family life running smoothly. She thought about Emma and Jake, about how to protect them from this mess. She thought about the house they'd bought together, about the mortgage and the shared bank accounts, and all the practical complications that would need to be addressed. But mostly, she thought about the conversation she had just overheard and how different William's voice had sounded when he was talking to Sarah compared to how it sounded when he talked to her. There had been an excitement, an engagement, a passion that Kate realized had been missing from their relationship for longer than she cared to admit. As she finally started the car and began driving home, Kate felt the first tears beginning to fall. Not just tears of sadness and betrayal, but tears of grief for the marriage she thought she had, the trust she thought existed, and the man she thought William was. Today had changed everything, and there was no going back to the comfortable routine they had shared that morning. Kate sat in her car in the driveway for nearly an hour, staring at the house that had been their sanctuary for 8 years. The white colonial with blue shutters that she and William had fallen in love with during their house hunting adventures when Emma was just a toddler. They had painted the front door together, planted the garden together, built the swing set in the backyard together. Every corner of this house held memories of their life as a family, and now all of those memories felt tainted by what she had discovered. When she finally walked through the front door, the silence felt overwhelming. Usually, she appreciated these quiet afternoon hours when the children were at school, and she could focus on her work or catch up on household tasks. But now the emptiness seemed to echo with the words she had overheard. "I can't stop thinking about last night. You're incredible." Kate doesn't suspect anything. Kate walked through each room of the house, seeing everything with new eyes. The family photos lining the hallway seemed to mock her with their smiling faces and captured moments of apparent happiness. The wedding photo on the mantelpiece, where she and William looked so young and full of hope, made her stomach churn with the bitter irony of promises broken. In the kitchen, she noticed William's coffee mug still sitting on the table where he'd left it that morning. The normalcy of it, the everyday routine that had played out just hours before her world collapsed, felt surreal. She had been living in one reality while a completely different truth existed parallel to it. Kate picked up her phone several times, starting to call her sister Maria, then stopping. How do you begin that conversation? How do you say the words out loud that make it real? She wanted to talk to someone, but she also wasn't ready to hear the sympathy in Maria's voice or to answer the inevitable questions about what she was going to do next. The afternoon stretched endlessly. Kate tried to work on her design projects, but the computer screen blurred as her mind replayed the scene at William's office over and over. She found herself analyzing every detail. The tone in William's voice when he spoke to Sarah, the guilty expression on Sarah's face, the way they had looked at each other with an intimacy that spoke of shared secrets and stolen moments. At 3:30, Kate forced herself to drive to the elementary school to pick up Emma and Jake. She sat in the pickup line among the other parents, many of whom she knew from PTA meetings and school events. Everyone looked so normal, so content with their ordinary Tuesday afternoon routines. Kate wondered if any of them were hiding secrets, if any of them had discovered life-changing information that morning. When Emma and Jake climbed into the car, chattering about their school day, Kate felt a surge of protectiveness that was almost physically painful. These innocent children had no idea that their family's foundation had just cracked. They were still living in the safe world of homework assignments and playground friendships, unaware that their parents' marriage was falling apart. "How was school?" Kate asked, trying to keep her voice normal. "Mrs. Peterson said my math test was perfect," Jake announced proudly. He was 9 years old and took great pride in his academic achievements. "And I got chosen to be the narrator in our class play," Emma added. At 11, she had inherited Kate's love for storytelling and drama. Kate managed to respond enthusiastically to their news, but inside she felt like she was performing a role in a play herself, the role of the normal mother whose life wasn't currently imploding. She wondered how long she could maintain this performance and what it would cost her emotionally. Back at home, Kate helped the children with their homework and started dinner preparations, all while checking the clock obsessively. William usually arrived home around 6:15, and she dreaded his return. Part of her wanted to confront him immediately, to demand answers and explanations. But another part of her wanted to delay that conversation for as long as possible, to preserve the illusion of normalcy for the children's sake. At 6:30, William's key turned in the lock. Kate was standing at the stove, stirring a pot of pasta sauce that she had been making mechanically, her hands moving through familiar motions while her mind remained completely disconnected from the task. "Daddy!" Emma and Jake called out, running to greet William as they did every evening. Kate heard William's voice responding to the children, the same warm, affectionate tone he always used with them. It was jarring to hear that normal parental voice after what she had witnessed that afternoon. How could he switch so seamlessly between his roles as unfaithful husband and devoted father? William appeared in the kitchen doorway, his expression cautious and uncertain. "Hi," he said quietly. "Hi," Kate replied without turning around. The children continued chattering about their day, filling the kitchen with their usual energy and noise. Under the cover of their voices, William moved closer to Kate. "We need to talk," he said in a low voice. "Not now," Kate responded, nodding toward Emma and Jake. "After dinner, after they're in bed." William nodded, understanding that they couldn't have this conversation in front of the children. But the tension between them was palpable, and Kate worried that Emma, who was particularly sensitive to adult emotions, would notice something was wrong. Dinner was a surreal experience. The children talked about school, made jokes, and asked for help with upcoming projects, while Kate and William sat across from each other maintaining a facade of normalcy. Kate found herself studying William's face, looking for signs of the deception she had missed. Had he always been this good at hiding his true feelings, or had she simply not been paying attention? She noticed things she had somehow overlooked before. The way he avoided making direct eye contact with her, the way he seemed distracted even when responding to the children, the way he kept checking his phone even during family dinner. These weren't new behaviors. They were patterns that had been developing over months. Kate felt angry at herself for not recognizing them sooner, for making excuses and giving him the benefit of the doubt when the signs were so clear. After dinner, Kate supervised the children's bedtime routines, while William cleaned up the kitchen. This division of labor was part of their established routine, but tonight it felt like they were deliberately avoiding being alone together. Kate read Emma a chapter from their current book, helped Jake organize his backpack for the next day, and tucked them both into bed with extra hugs that they seemed to sense were somehow more significant than usual. "Mom, is everything okay?" Emma asked as Kate was turning off her bedroom light. "You seem sad." Kate's heart clenched. Despite her efforts to hide her emotions, her perceptive daughter had noticed something was wrong. "I'm just tired, sweetheart. It's been a long day. Sleep well." But As Kate closed Emma's bedroom door, she realized that protecting the children from this situation was going to be far more complicated than she had anticipated. Children were intuitive about family dynamics, and they would inevitably sense the tension and changes that lay ahead. Downstairs, William was waiting in the living room. He was sitting on the edge of the couch, his hands clasped together, looking like a man preparing for the most difficult conversation of his life. When Kate entered the room, he looked up at her with an expression that mixed guilt, fear, and something that might have been relief. "I don't know where to start," William said. Kate sat down in the armchair across from him, deliberately choosing not to sit on the couch where they usually watch television together in the evenings. The physical distance felt important, a way of establishing that this was not a normal conversation between husband and wife. "How about you start by telling me the truth?" Kate said. "All of it. Not the version you think I can handle, or the version that makes you look better. Just the truth." William ran his hands through his hair, a gesture Kate had seen thousands of times during their marriage whenever he was stressed or trying to organize his thoughts. "Sarah and it started about 4 months ago. We were working late on the Morrison project, and we connected. We talked about things we'd never discussed before, about dreams, about disappointments, about feeling like life was passing us by." Kate felt another wave of pain wash over her. For months, not 3 as he had told Sarah. Another lie, even when he was supposedly coming clean. "And you felt that life was passing you by because of me? Because of our family?" "No, that's not what I meant," William said quickly. "It wasn't about you or the kids. It was about me feeling like I had lost touch with who I was outside of being a husband and father. Sarah made me remember what it felt like to be exciting to someone, to be seen as more than just a provider and a dependable partner." Kate absorbed this explanation, trying to understand how William's midlife crisis had led him to betray their marriage. "So instead of talking to me about these feelings, instead of working on our relationship, you decided to start an affair with your coworker. It wasn't planned, Kate. I never set out to hurt you or to destroy our marriage. It just happened gradually. One conversation led to another. One late night at the office led to dinner. Dinner led to—" William trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. "Led to what?" Kate pressed. "I need to know what I'm dealing with here, William. How far did this go?" William's face flushed with embarrassment and shame. We've been sleeping together for about 2 months. We've been to dinner probably a dozen times. We've talked about what it would be like if we were both free to be together without hiding." Each detail felt like a physical blow to Kate. Not just the sexual betrayal, but the emotional intimacy, the shared meals, the conversations about a future together. This wasn't a momentary lapse in judgment or a brief affair driven by physical attraction. This was a relationship complete with its own history and mythology. "Do you love her?" Kate asked, the words feeling like glass in her throat. William was quiet for a long moment, and his silence was more devastating than any answer could have been. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. "I think I do. I know that's not what you want to hear, but you asked for the truth." Kate felt something inside her chest crack, wide open. She had been prepared for many possible answers, that it was just physical, that it was a mistake, that it meant nothing. But she hadn't been prepared for William to admit that he loved another woman. That admission changed everything. This wasn't a marriage that could be saved with counseling and forgiveness. This was a marriage that was already over. They just hadn't made it official yet. "What do you want, William?" Kate asked. "Do you want to work on our marriage? Or do you want to be with Sarah?" "I don't know," William admitted. "I'm so confused, Kate. Part of me knows that what Sarah and I have is built on fantasy and stolen moments. Part of me knows that we have something real here, a history, a family, a life we've built together. But I can't deny that what I feel for Sarah is intense in a way I haven't felt in years." Kate stood up abruptly, unable to sit still any longer. The energy of anger and hurt was building inside her, demanding physical expression. "So while I've been taking care of our children, managing our household, supporting your career, and trying to be a good wife, You've been falling in love with another woman and questioning whether our marriage is worth saving. Kate, please try to understand. Understand what? Kate interrupted, her voice rising despite her intention to keep the conversation quiet. Understand that I'm not exciting enough for you anymore. Understand that 12 years of marriage and 2 children mean less to you than 3 months of secret dinners with your coworker. That's not fair, William said, standing up as well. Our marriage has been struggling for a while, Kate. We both know it. We've been living like roommates more than lovers. We barely talk about anything deeper than schedules and grocery lists. And whose fault is that? Kate shot back. I've tried to connect with you, William. I've suggested date nights. I've asked about your day. I've initiated conversations about our relationship. You're the one who's been distant and distracted, and now I know why. You're right, William said, his shoulders sagging with the weight of his admissions. You're absolutely right. I handled this all wrong. I should have talked to you about how I was feeling instead of turning to someone else. Kate felt tears threatening again, but this time they were angry tears rather than sad ones. Should have, could have, would have. That doesn't change what you did, William. That doesn't change that you broke our marriage vows and our trust and possibly destroyed our family. They stood facing each other in the living room where they had spent countless evenings together, where they had decorated Christmas trees and celebrated birthdays and watched their children take their first steps. The familiar space felt foreign now, charged with conflict and loss. What happens now? William asked. Kate looked at this man who had been her partner for 12 years, the father of her children, the person she had trusted more than anyone in the world. She saw the guilt in his eyes, the confusion, the genuine remorse. But she also saw someone who had made a series of deliberate choices that had led them to this moment. Now, Kate said, her voice steady despite the turmoil in her heart. You decide what you want, and I decide what I'm willing to accept. And we figure out how to protect our children from the mess we've made. Kate, I want to fix this. I want us to try counseling to work through this together. Do you? Kate asked. Or do you just want to avoid the guilt and the complications of divorce? Because if you're in love with Sarah, if she's what makes you feel alive and excited, then trying to save our marriage is just going to make all 3 of us miserable. William opened his mouth to respond, but no words came. Kate could see the internal struggle playing out on his face, the battle between obligation and desire, between the known and the unknown, between the safe choice and the exciting one. Think about it, Kate said, moving toward the stairs. Really think about it, because I deserve better than being someone's second choice. And our children deserve parents who are either fully committed to making their marriage work or mature enough to end it respectfully. As Kate climbed the stairs to their bedroom, she realized that while this was perhaps the worst day of her marriage, it was also the beginning of clarity. For months, she had been living with vague unease and doubt. Now she knew exactly where things stood, and while the truth was painful, it was also liberating. Whatever happened next, it would be based on honesty rather than deception, choice rather than drift. Kate barely slept that night. She lay on her side of the bed, acutely aware of William's presence beside her, listening to his restless breathing that told her he wasn't sleeping either. The physical space between them on the mattress felt like a canyon, and Kate found herself wondering if this would be one of the last nights they would share this bed as husband and wife. Every few hours, one of them would shift positions, and the movement would wake the other. They were both pretending to sleep, both lost in their own thoughts about the conversation they'd had and the decisions that lay ahead. Kate found herself remembering their early years together, when they would talk late into the night about their dreams and fears, when physical intimacy came naturally and frequently, when they felt like true partners in building a life together. Well, had that changed? Kate tried to identify the exact moment when they had stopped being lovers and started being efficient household managers, but the shift had been so gradual that it was impossible to pinpoint. Perhaps it had started when Emma was born, and they became focused on the overwhelming responsibility of caring for a newborn. Perhaps it had accelerated when Jake arrived, and Their family felt complete, but chaotic. Perhaps it had solidified when William's career demands increased, and Kate's freelance work became secondary to child-rearing responsibilities. But even as Kate analyzed the gradual erosion of their romantic connection, she couldn't excuse William's choice to seek that connection with another woman instead of working to restore it with his wife. Other couples faced similar challenges without resorting to infidelity. Other marriages survived the transition from passionate love to comfortable partnership, and sometimes found their way back to passion. As the first light of dawn crept through their bedroom window, Kate made a decision. She couldn't continue living in limbo, pretending that everything was normal while waiting for William to decide between his wife and his lover. She needed space to think clearly, away from the constant tension and the need to maintain appearances for the children. Kate slipped out of bed and went downstairs to make coffee, grateful for a few minutes of solitude before the day began. As she stood in the quiet kitchen, watching the coffee drip into the pot, she thought about practical matters that would need to be addressed regardless of what William decided. Their joint bank accounts, the mortgage, the children's schedules, the division of household responsibilities, all of these would be affected by whatever path they chose. She also thought about her own future, independent of William's choice. For 12 years, her identity had been intertwined with being William's wife and Emma and Jake's mother. If her marriage ended, who would she be? The question was both terrifying and oddly exciting. What was the last time she had thought about her own dreams and goals rather than her family's needs? William appeared in the kitchen at 6:30, already dressed for work. His hair was still damp from the shower, and Kate caught a whiff of the expensive cologne that she now realized he had been wearing to impress Sarah rather than her. "Good morning," he said cautiously, as if testing whether Kate was still angry or had somehow forgiven him overnight. "Good morning," Kate replied neutrally, pouring coffee into his usual mug and setting it on the counter. They moved around each other in the kitchen with the practiced efficiency of people who had shared the space for years, but the easy familiarity felt forced now. Kate was hyper-aware of every movement, every gesture, every word, as if she were observing a stranger rather than her husband of 12 years. "Kate, I've been thinking about what you said last night," William began, but Kate held up her hand to stop him. "Not now," she said, nodding toward the stairs where they could hear the children beginning to stir. "We can't have this conversation with Emma and Jake around." William nodded, understanding that their personal crisis needed to be kept separate from the children's morning routine. But Kate could see the urgency in his eyes, the need to resolve the tension between them. She suspected that maintaining the facade of normalcy was as difficult for him as it was for her. Emma and Jake came downstairs in their pajamas, rubbing sleep from their eyes and immediately filling the kitchen with their morning chatter about the day ahead. Emma had a field trip to the Science Museum, and Jake needed to remember to bring his permission slip for next week's class party. Kate focused on these ordinary concerns with relief, grateful for the distraction of parental responsibilities. But as she packed lunches and reminded the children about their after-school activities, Kate noticed William watching her with an expression that looked like grief. It occurred to her that he might be realizing what he stood to lose. Not just her, but these daily moments of family life that he had perhaps taken for granted. After William left for work and the children were off to school, Kate called her sister Maria. "Kate, what a nice surprise," Maria said cheerfully. "How are things going?" Kate took a deep breath, knowing that once she said the words out loud, there would be no taking them back. "Maria, I need to talk to you about something. Can you come over?" Something in Kate's tone must have alerted Maria to the seriousness of the situation. "Of course. I can be there in 20 minutes. Is everything okay?" "No," Kate said simply. "Everything is not okay." When Maria arrived, she took one look at Kate's face and immediately enveloped her in a hug. Maria was 3 years older than Kate and had always been protective of her younger sister. She had been through her own divorce 5 years earlier and had rebuilt her life as a single mother with strength and grace that Kate had always admired. They sat at the kitchen table with coffee, and Kate told Maria everything, from her growing suspicions about William's behavior to the devastating scene at his office the day before. Maria listened without interruption, her expression growing increasingly angry as the story unfolded. "That bastard," Maria said when Kate finished. "I always thought William was one of the good ones. I can't believe he did this to you. The worst part is that I feel like I should have known sooner," Kate said. "All the signs were there. I just didn't want to see them." "Don't you dare blame yourself for his choices," Maria said firmly. "You trusted your husband, which is exactly what you should have done. He's the one who betrayed that trust." Kate felt tears threatening again. Having someone validate her feelings and place the blame squarely where it belonged was both comforting and overwhelming. "I don't know what to do, Maria. Part of me wants to fight for our marriage, to try counseling and see if we can work through this. But another part of me thinks it might already be too late." "What does your gut tell you?" Maria asked. "Forget about what you think you should do or what would be easier for the kids. What do you feel in your heart?" Kate considered the question carefully. "I think William has already moved on emotionally. I think he's trying to convince himself that he wants to save our marriage because it's the right thing to do, but his heart is with Sarah. And I can't build a future with someone who sees me as the responsible choice rather than the woman he loves." Maria reached across the table and squeezed Kate's hand. "Then you have her answer. But what about Emma and Jake? How do I break up their family because their father fell in love with someone else?" "You're not breaking up their family," Maria said. "William already did that when he chose to have an affair. You're just acknowledging the reality of the situation and making the best decision for everyone involved, including the children." Kate knew Maria was right, but the thought of telling Emma and Jake that their parents were getting divorced made her feel physically ill. They were so young, so trusting, so dependent on the stability that she and William provided. How could she explain that sometimes adults made mistakes that changed everything? "I need some time to think," Kate said, "and I need some space from William to figure out what I really want, independent of his guilt and confusion." "You can stay with me," Maria offered immediately. "Bring the kids and stay as long as you need. You know there's always room for you in my house." Kate felt a wave of gratitude for her sister's unconditional support. "Thank you. I think I might need to take you up on that." They spent the rest of the morning talking through practical considerations: Kate's work situation, the children's schools, legal representation, financial planning. It felt overwhelming to think about untangling 12 years of shared life, but it also felt empowering to take concrete steps rather than remaining paralyzed by indecision. That afternoon, Kate picked up Emma and Jake from school and took them to the park. She wanted to spend quality time with them before having another difficult conversation with William that evening. As she watched them play on the swings and chase each other around the playground, Kate felt a fierce protectiveness that strengthened her resolve. Emma and Jake deserved parents who were either fully committed to their marriage or mature enough to end it respectfully. They deserved to grow up understanding that love should be honest and faithful, not secretive and conflicted. Most importantly, they deserved to see their mother as a strong woman who valued herself enough to demand better treatment. When William came home that evening, Kate was ready for the conversation she knew they needed to have. After dinner and the children's bedtime routine, they sat down in the living room again, but this time Kate felt calmer and more certain about what she wanted to say. "I've made some decisions," Kate began before William could speak. "I need some space to think clearly about our future, and I don't think I can do that while we're living in the same house and trying to maintain normalcy for the kids." William's face paled. "Are you leaving me?" "I'm taking Emma and Jake to stay with Maria for a while," Kate said. "This gives you time to figure out what you really want without the pressure of daily family responsibilities. And it gives me time to decide what I'm willing to accept." "How long?" William asked. "I don't know. A few weeks, maybe longer. However long it takes for both of us to be honest about what we want." William was quiet for a long moment, absorbing the reality that his family was about to leave him. "I don't want you to go. I want us to work through this together." Do you? Kate asked. Because last night you told me you think you love Sarah. That's not something we can work through with a few counseling sessions. William, that's a fundamental question about who you want to build a life with. What if I ended things with Sarah completely? What if I promised never to see her again outside of work? Would you be willing to try counseling then? Kate looked at William's face, seeing the desperation there, the fear of losing his family. But she also heard what he wasn't saying, that ending things with Sarah would be a sacrifice rather than a choice, that he would be giving up something he valued in order to keep his marriage. I can't be your consolation prize, William, Kate said gently. I can't spend the rest of our marriage wondering if you're thinking about what you gave up to be with me. Both of us deserve better than that. So what are you saying? That our marriage is over. I'm saying that our marriage as it was is over, Kate replied. The question now is whether we can build something new together, something based on complete honesty and genuine choice rather than habit and obligation. William ran his hands through his hair again, the gesture now familiar to Kate as a sign of his internal struggle. I'm so confused, Kate. I do love you, maybe not in the same way I did when we first got married, but there's a deep, real love there. You're the mother of my children, my partner in building this life we have. But what I feel for Sarah, it's different. It's exciting and passionate and makes me feel alive in a way I haven't felt in years. Kate absorbed this explanation, recognizing its honesty even as it confirmed her fears. And do you think that excitement and passion could exist between us again if we worked at it? Or do you think that's something you need to find with someone new? I don't know, William admitted. I want to believe it's possible, but I can't promise something I'm not sure about. Kate stood up, feeling a sense of resolution settling over her. Then, you need time to figure that out, and I need time to decide if I'm willing to take that risk with you. Maybe space will give us both clarity. As Kate went upstairs to pack bags for herself and the children, she felt a mixture of sadness and relief. The conversation hadn't resolved anything definitively, but it had moved them out of the limbo they'd been trapped in since yesterday. Whatever happened next, it would be based on honest choices rather than confused obligations. She looked around the bedroom she had shared with William for 8 years, at the photos and personal items that represented their life together. Some of these things she would pack and take with her. Others would remain as reminders of what had been and what might never be again. For the first time since discovering William's affair, Kate felt like she was taking control of her own future rather than simply reacting to his choices. The uncertainty was still frightening, but it was also liberating. Tomorrow, she would wake up in a different place, beginning a new chapter of her life. Where that chapter would lead, only time would tell. 3 weeks had passed since Kate and the children had moved in with Maria. The adjustment had been harder than Kate had anticipated, but also more healing than she had hoped. Living in her sister's warm, chaotic household had reminded Kate of who she was outside of her role as William's wife. Maria's home was filled with laughter, honest conversations, and the kind of emotional support that Kate hadn't realized she'd been missing. Emma and Jake had initially struggled with the temporary living arrangement, asking daily when they would return home and why Daddy couldn't come stay with Aunt Maria too. Kate had explained that sometimes adults needed space to work through their problems, and that this separation didn't mean anyone loved them any less. The children seemed to accept this explanation, but Kate could see the worry in their eyes and the way they clung to her more tightly at bedtime. During those 3 weeks, William had called every day to talk to the children and had visited twice for dinner at Maria's house. These interactions were polite, but strained, with both Kate and William carefully avoiding any discussion of their relationship while the children were present. The conversations they needed to have would require privacy and emotional space that seemed impossible to find. Kate had also begun seeing a therapist, Dr. Rebecca Chun, who specialized in helping people navigate major life transitions. The sessions were difficult but illuminating, helping Kate understand patterns in her relationship with William that she had never recognized before. Dr. Chun had gently challenged Kate to examine her own role in the gradual erosion of intimacy in her marriage, not to assign blame, but to understand how she wanted to approach relationships differently in the future. You've spent 12 years prioritizing everyone else's needs, Dr. Chun had observed during their third session. Your husband's career, your children's activities, your family's daily functioning. When was the last time you asked yourself what you needed or wanted? The question had haunted Kate for days. She realized that somewhere along the way, she had become so focused on being the perfect wife and mother that she had lost touch with her own desires and ambitions. Her freelance graphic design work had become secondary to everyone else's schedules. Her friendships had been neglected in favor of family obligations. Her own dreams had been postponed indefinitely while she supported everyone else's goals. This realization didn't excuse William's affair, but it helped Kate understand how they had both contributed to the emotional distance in their marriage. She had become so invested in maintaining the appearance of a perfect family that she had stopped nurturing the romantic relationship at its center. On a Thursday evening, as Kate was helping Emma with a school project about family traditions, her phone rang. It was William, but instead of asking to speak to the children as he usually did, he asked if they could meet alone to talk. "I think I'm ready to have the conversation we've been avoiding," William said, his voice sounding tired but determined. They agreed to meet at a coffee shop downtown the next evening, neutral territory where they could speak honestly without the weight of their shared history pressing down on them from every corner of their home. Kate spent Friday feeling nervous and uncertain about what William might say. Part of her hoped he would tell her that he had ended things with Sarah and wanted to fight for their marriage. Another part of her feared that he would ask for a divorce so he could be with the woman he loved. Both possibilities felt fraught with complications and potential heartache. The coffee shop was busy with the Friday evening crowd, providing enough background noise for privacy while maintaining the public setting that would keep their conversation civil. William was already waiting when Kate arrived, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups of coffee, one prepared exactly the way Kate preferred it, a small gesture that spoke of intimate knowledge accumulated over years of marriage. "Thank you for meeting me," William said as Kate sat down. He looked thinner than he had 3 weeks ago, with dark circles under his eyes that suggested he hadn't been sleeping well. "How are you doing?" Kate asked, genuinely concerned despite everything that had happened between them. "Honestly, terrible," William admitted. "The house feels empty without you and the kids. I've had a lot of time to think about what I want and what I've done, and I don't like what I've discovered about myself." Kate waited for him to continue, sensing that he had rehearsed what he wanted to say. "I ended things with Sarah," William said quietly. 2 weeks ago, I told her that I needed to focus on my marriage, and that continuing our relationship was hurting too many people, including ourselves. Kate felt a complex mix of emotions, relief, sadness, and something that might have been disappointment. How did she take it? She was hurt, but she also said she was relieved. The secrecy and guilt were taking a toll on her too. She's requested a transfer to another department, which I think is the right thing for everyone. "And how do you feel about ending it?" Kate asked, needing to understand whether William's decision had been made from love for his family or simply from a sense of duty. William was quiet for a long moment, staring down at his coffee. "I miss her," he said finally. "I'm not going to lie to you about that. What we had was intense. But I also realized that it was built on fantasy. We never had to deal with mortgage payments or sick children or daily responsibilities. We only saw each other at our best, in stolen moments when we were both escaping from our real lives." Kate appreciated his honesty, even though it stung to hear him admit that he missed his relationship with Sarah. "And what about us? What do you want for our marriage?" "I want to try again," William said, looking directly at Kate for the first time since she had arrived. "But I want to do it right this time. I want us to go to counseling together and learn how to really communicate with each other. I want to date you again to remember why we fell in love in the first place. I want to rebuild our relationship on a foundation of honesty and choice rather than habit and obligation." Kate studied William's face, looking for signs of the deception she had missed before. But what she saw was genuine remorse, hope, and a vulnerability that reminded her of the young man she had married 12 years ago. "I've been thinking a lot too," Kate said, "about what went wrong between us, about my own role in the distance that developed in our relationship. I realized that I became so focused on being the perfect wife and mother that I stopped being an interesting, passionate person in my own right." "Kate, you are interesting and passionate. Let me finish," Kate interrupted gently. "I need to say this. I think we both stopped nurturing our individual growth and our romantic connection. We became efficient partners in running a household, but we stopped being lovers and friends. I contributed to that pattern as much as you did." William reached across the table and tentatively touched Kate's hand. "So, does that mean you're willing to try again?" Kate looked down at William's hand covering hers, at the wedding ring he still wore, at the familiar fingers that had once traced her face with tenderness and desire. "I think I am," she said slowly, "but I need you to understand that it can't go back to the way it was. We need to build something new together, something better." "What would that look like?" William asked. Kate had been thinking about this question for weeks. "It means we both take responsibility for nurturing our relationship, not just our family responsibilities. It means we prioritize time together as a couple, not just as parents. It means we're honest about our needs and feelings, even when it's uncomfortable. And it means we both commit to doing the work to rebuild trust and intimacy." "I want all of that," William said earnestly. "I made a lot of mistakes, Kate, but losing you and the kids has made me realize what really matters to me. My family, our family, what we've built together." Kate felt tears beginning to gather in her eyes, but they were different from the tears of betrayal and anger she had cried 3 weeks ago. These were tears of hope mixed with caution, of love tempered by hard-won wisdom. "There's something else," Kate said. "I've decided to restart my graphic design business in a more serious way. I want to build a client base and maybe even hire other freelancers eventually. I need to know that you'll support my professional goals the way I've supported yours." "Of course," William said immediately. "I want you to pursue whatever makes you happy and fulfilled. I realize now that I took your sacrifices for granted, and I don't want you to put your dreams on hold for our family anymore." Kate smiled at this response, feeling seen and valued in a way she hadn't experienced in years. "I also think we should start marriage counseling before I move back home. I want us to have the tools and skills we need to rebuild our relationship properly." William nodded eagerly. "I'll call therapists tomorrow. We can interview them together and find someone we both feel comfortable with." They sat in a coffee shop for another hour, talking more openly and honestly than they had in months. Kate shared her insights from individual therapy, and William talked about the loneliness and regret he had experienced during their separation. They discussed practical matters like how to explain their reconciliation to the children and how to rebuild trust gradually rather than expecting immediate forgiveness. As they prepared to leave, William stood up and hesitated, as if unsure how to say goodbye. In the past, they would have hugged or kissed automatically. But everything between them now required intention and choice rather than assumption. Kate made the decision for both of them, reaching out to embrace William briefly but warmly. "I'm glad we talked," she said. "I think we have a chance to build something really good together if we both commit to doing the work." "I love you, Kate," William said as they separated. "I know I have a lot to prove, but I want you to know that ending up here, in this place where I almost lost everything, has taught me who and what I want to choose." "I love you too," Kate replied, and she was surprised to realize that she meant it. The love felt different now, less naive, more conditional, but also potentially stronger because it was based on choice rather than habit. 2 weeks later, Kate and the children moved back home. The house felt different. Not because anything physical had changed, but because Kate and William were approaching their shared life with new awareness and intention. They had started couples counseling with Dr. Patricia Martinez, a warm but direct therapist who challenged them to communicate more effectively and to see each other as individuals rather than simply as functional partners. Emma and Jake were overjoyed to be home and seemed to sense that something positive had shifted between their parents, even though they didn't understand the details of what had happened. Kate and William had decided to tell them simply that they had gone through a difficult time, but were working together to make their family stronger. The process of rebuilding wasn't easy. There were moments when Kate felt overwhelmed by memories of William's betrayal, times when she wondered if she was being naive to trust him again. There were also moments when William seemed frustrated by Kate's need for reassurance and the slow pace of rebuilding intimacy. But there were also breakthrough moments that reminded them both why they had fallen in love in the first place. Date nights where they talked for hours about their dreams and fears. Quiet mornings when they drank coffee together and shared comfortable silence. Moments of laughter that felt genuine and spontaneous rather than forced. 6 months after Kate had overheard that devastating conversation at William's office, she found herself in her newly organized home office, working on a logo design for a major client she had landed through her renewed networking efforts. Through the window, she could see William in the backyard, playing catch with Jake while Emma practiced cartwheels on the grass. The scene looked remarkably similar to countless other family moments they had shared over the years. But Kate knew that the foundation beneath this ordinary moment was entirely different now. It was built on choice and intention rather than assumption and habit. It was built on honesty about their individual needs and desires rather than silent resentment and unmet expectations. Kate's phone buzzed with a text from William. Dinner reservations at Antonio's tonight. Maria is picking up the kids at 6. Can't wait to celebrate your new client with you. Kate smiled as she typed back, looking forward to it. And thank you for remembering that this was important to me. Always, came William's immediate reply. Kate looked back out her family in the yard and felt a deep sense of gratitude. Not for the perfect life she had once thought she had, but for the real, complicated, chosen life they were building together. It wasn't the naive happiness of their early marriage, but it was something potentially more valuable, a love that had been tested, broken, and consciously rebuilt stronger than before. The message she had accidentally overheard that day in William's office had shattered her illusions about her marriage. But in the long run, it had also given her and William the opportunity to build something more honest and authentic than what they had before. Sometimes, Kate reflected, the most devastating moments can become the foundation for the most meaningful transformations. As she returned to her design work, Kate felt confident that while their future wasn't guaranteed, no marriage ever was, it was being built on a foundation solid enough to weather whatever challenges lay ahead. And perhaps most importantly, it was being built by two people who had chosen each other consciously, with full knowledge of both their strengths and their capacity for failure. The phone rang, breaking into her thoughts. It was a potential new client interested in hiring her firm for a major branding project. As Kate answered the call with confidence and enthusiasm, she realized that she had not only rebuilt her marriage, but had also rebuilt herself into someone she was genuinely proud to be. The woman who had stood frozen outside William's office 6 months ago felt like a different person entirely. Someone who had been afraid of the truth rather than empowered by it. Now, Kate welcomed truth in all its complexity because she had learned that even painful honesty was preferable to comfortable deception. And in that truth, she and William had found their way back to each other, not as the same people who had married 12 years ago, but as wiser, more intentional partners ready to write the next chapter of their story together.